Eaton. So what's your, let's say, responsibility as an organization here in Europe?
Yeah, sure. So in the world we are living, so people need to have technologies, transportation, energy, infrastructure to live and work. And at Eaton, we are developing technologies to support power management and really ensure the energy transition in terms of digitalization, decarbonization, decentralization. And we have really strong technologies which are safe, reliable, and efficient to ensure the move to a more sustainable future.
Yeah, you feel, let's say, this responsibility, you feel this task now, I think, more than ever, don't you?
Absolutely, right. So, I mean, there is a strong regulatory push in Europe, which is driven by Fit for 55 package. We see also with the geopolitical crisis, I mean, COVID last year and now the Ukraine crisis, a further strong push to move into a more sustainable future. So Europe has announced the Repower EU, which is really an acceleration of the need to decarbonize our sectors and to bring to a more zero emission world.
Yes. Of course, there's a danger of enormous congestion on the grid now because we are in a transformation towards electrification. How to solve this?
The energy transition, as you say, is bumpy, right? On one side, we see the electrification of sectors, transport, buildings, industry, the need to move to electrical heating, electrical transportation, and the challenge that is going to increase the power demand on one side. On the other side, we move away from fossil fuels, but this creates an issue on the power capacity. We move into renewable energy, but because sun is not always shining and wind is not always blowing, then we really have a volatility issue on the availability of power. And for that, we need to have flexibility and we need to have mechanism to manage this flexibility. This is what we call sector coupling, to really see how sectors can support the flexibility required by the grid.
Can you explain how this shift takes place?
Yeah, so I mean, buildings are becoming energy hubs. And that's a challenge for a building owner because they really need to manage the flows of energy between PV, storage, EV charger, and they need to do that while still answering the needs, which are either control the costs or move to a more sustainable building, still by providing comfort to the users. So if we look at that, it's very important that they have the right tools and the ecosystem to be able to manage the energy flows inside the buildings, and solutions like storage, EV charger, and PVs managed by smart charging and by building energy management system are really the tools for the buildings and to manage the flexibility at the level of the buildings. But if I'm stepping back as well, I mean, these buildings becoming energy hubs are also flexible assets for the grid. So they have a lot of value to also, I mean, manage the challenge of the flexibility that we discussed before with the increase of renewables.
Are we ready for this on the, let's say, legislative part?
Technology is ready, but we need to make sure that any provider of flexibility and flexible assets are legally recognized and properly remunerated. And that's probably the part which is missing. So on the legislative landscape, there is a lot of discussion as part of Fit for 55 package, Energy Efficiency Directive, Renewable Energy Directive, Energy Performance of Building Directive. All of them are discussing about that. It's very important that flexibility is really part of the implementation of this regulation, that these regulations are then entering into force into national legislation, laws and policies, and that the owners of flexibility are properly remunerated, and that this provision of flexibility is voluntary, driven by price signals and not pushed and mandated by DNOs.
So, last question, what was your main message today for the audience here in Amsterdam?
My message is that, I mean, we need to probably bring more awareness to the building owners and the EV users that they have flexible assets available. And the other message is that the technology is ready, but it's very critical that we have the proper regulation in order to make sure that they are properly remunerated and that they are incentivized to some extent to, also participate to the flexibility which is required by the grid.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.